on Facebook, folks. We'll be with you in 1 second. We're going recording. We're going live on Twitter. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. Pete Caliendo, Baseball Outside the Box, the show that loves to interview baseball's best coaching minds who love to challenge the status quo. Hey, today, you're not going to believe it. One of the best in the business. Listen, a great friend of mine. He has helped me so much in my baseball business and my life in general. And here's how I describe him. Relentless. He's a relentless learner, outside the box thinker, and attention to detail. I know he doesn't want to hear it. He's always looking for that next best thing for his team to give him the edge, to be the winner. And on top of it, he's the professional of all professionals. And he's got an incredible background. We're not going to go through it all, but listen, you got to hear this. He has spoken to Fortune 500 companies for years about building their brand, and also coaches how to build their brand and be successful in their industry. He's a motivational speaker. He's a great friend. He's the winningest manager in the Frontier League history in a very short time. He won the national championship with the Frontier League. He's had 59 players who have played in professional baseball. He's relentless in getting his players signed to pro ball. But the best of it all, he's consistently winning and building a culture in his program. And this will blow your mind. He's the CEO of the Frontier League, Southern Illinois Miners. Now, I'm going to ask him right off the bat, manager, CEO. I'm lucky I can handle my podcast, and he can handle all that. So let me welcome my good friend, Michael, Italian-American Pinto, and I've got my Pinto shirt on today. What's up, Michael?
I love it. I love it. Now, first of all, to give full credit, that was a design by Jeff Holtke, who used to be our production manager with Southern Illinois. And so a shout out to Jeff for the incredible design on the logo and the shirt. And he started a thing where if I would go out to argue with an umpire, he would play the Godfather music and would show that graphic up on the scoreboard. And so it just became a thing, and T-shirts. And if I get ejected, there's a discount on the shirts in the team store.
You know, and I know you guys have had so much success, but you're the type person, and you do it so well. You give so much credit to people that are in your organization, because without them, you don't have a successful program. But it still takes a leader. And what I want to know is, how do you do all this? Because you went from, an extremely successful manager in building a program, and that's building a program on the field, which also entails off the field, obviously. Yeah. But then you've got to build a program structurally within the whole organization. How do you accomplish that?
It's a lot of work, but as you said, an incredible staff. Kathy Perry, who's our general manager, and Will Neerman, who is our assistant GM, are very like-minded thinkers with me. And when I took over as COO of the business, we talked about a concept called what else thinking. And so when we talked about concepts or things that we did internally, the only wrong answer was, well, we've always done it this way. Well, is there a better way? I remember back in the movie Moneyball, actually in the book, there was a line called the naive question. And the naive question went like this: if we weren't already doing it this way, is this the way we'd start? So we kind of re-examined our whole business, as I had with baseball, and said, how else could we do it? And so when you're constantly driven by that, and your staff and the people that work with you are driven by that, you can get a lot of things done that are a lot of fun and pretty cool.
Michael, could you have done this without your marketing background, the way your speaking background, your creating of videos? I mean, all your expertise that you had throughout your career, helping real estate agents become better, helping financial planners become better and brand themselves. Could you have done that, what you're doing now, without that experience?
Probably not, Pete. In all honesty, when I first interviewed with the job with the Southern Illinois Miners, Eric Haig was the COO at the time, and when I went in the interview, I went in with a book. It was about an inch thick, and I broke down what I thought were the 7 pillars to build an organization from the ground up. How do you build a dynasty that wins year in and year out? And that's what I started with. But they were all business principles, and one of them was a branding principle. You have to build a brand that is viewed as successful, that a brand that is constantly, that moves their players onto organizations, and people need to know that. We looked at recruiting concepts, and I look at every idea that's out there, and I'm trying to say, how can I take that idea and bring that into what we do?
Awesome. And folks on Facebook Live, go ahead if you have any questions for Michael. We're going to get into the baseball stuff. It's going to be some great stuff. I'm telling you, I've known Mike for a lot of years, and he's developed an incredible program. But Mike, I think with what's going on today, especially with all the issues with COVID and some of the racism issues going on, and it's not just because of that, but in general, I want to talk about, because I'm Italian, I'm a little hot-blooded, and once in a while I see some things and I want to respond in social media, and, I'm typing away, right, boy, and then I stop. Now, I learned that from my friend Mike Pinto, because I think in the old days I would have said, screw it, I'm sending it, and we laugh a little bit about it because, it is kind of funny in some ways, but at the same time it's extremely serious, especially for young people, but I think everybody in general. Talk about social media, how important it is to understand how to use it properly and how it can hurt you.
First of all, it is a big part of our brand and how people see us, and multiple impressions over a period of time. People get a feeling of who you are and how you are. That comes to us as individuals. It comes as organizations as well. One of the things I started with our players, and I'm going back maybe 7 or 8 years ago, is I started a seminar that we do in spring training. We do a lot of classroom work as well, but we do a course called #Don'tPressSend. And what I do is, in about a 45-minute period of time, show them the horror stories that have happened to people in business, professional athletes, because they couldn't help themselves and they had to press the send button. And then there was no getting it back. And then that got copied and it got sent to somebody else. And careers have been ruined, business careers, lives, their baseball, sports careers have been ruined. I talked to an agent recently and who has a very, very well-known football player among his clients. And he said, I'd like to get you in a room with him for an hour because he needs to better understand this. And so it's something I've done with my players, and I knew a couple years ago it really worked. We had a player named Rick Teasley, tremendous pitcher for us, and Rick had aged out of our league and had gone on to another league, and he's a big Florida State University football fan. And one day in the fall, I see a tweet, and it said, from Rick, and it was after a Florida State loss, and he said, it's a good thing Mike Pinto taught us don't press send, or I would be losing a lot of friends right now.
And you know what? And that's a great line. Don't press send. I mean, that's something that I think needs to be put out there. Interesting enough, we say don't press send, but there's also issues with a lot of hackers out there. We've had hackers on the Zoom. People nowadays somehow have nothing to do, and all of a sudden now they're posting things, that maybe they could take my picture, put it on social media, say things, now we got to protect ourselves from that. What do you think? What's your message? Because, you were a pro scout, you were a college coach. What's your message out there on how to protect yourself? Do you just stay off of social media completely?
Well, the thing is, social media can be a really good thing. I love social media and my ability to keep up with, like you and I were talking about. I would not have known you went to Door County and, had a great time with Bev last weekend, but I got a chance to keep up with your life on social media. I love that part of it. What I don't love is that a lot of people use social media for the wrong things, and it can backfire on you. One thing I mentioned in my class with the players was I had a player that was putting a lot of political views. And I said to him one day, I took him aside and said, I'm not getting into any political discussion with you. I want you to remember, though, and understand that 50% of your future employers are the other side. So when you choose to put strong political messages on your personal social media page, understand that there's a time down the road that somebody may investigate your social media and go, nah, maybe we don't want that here.
Yeah, you know, and I think that's the key is that they can go back and look. And that's why I think young people especially have to be real careful because they don't have the experience. And trust me, folks, it is not easy. And again, if you're on Facebook, if you have any questions about that, anything else, when we talk about social media, I mean, I wrote a note down. I think we should start a new business, the non-social media, Twitter maybe, and let everybody go on that site for the non-social stuff.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like you said, social media could be really good. But at the same time, it could be detrimental. And the issue is this. Here's what I believe. I want to get your opinion on this. You only have so many characters to write. Even if you're writing something good, it can be misinterpreted. And there's nothing like what you and I are doing right now. The best media is one-on-one Zoom or group Zoom where you could talk about it, open up, and explain everything.
Yeah. Well, recently, unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we were forced to suspend our season. And when we made the announcement, I didn't want our players hearing it any other way than to hear it from me. And so we did a Zoom meeting at 10 o'clock, the same time the announcement was going out. I wanted the players to hear from me what all had taken place, what efforts we had put in, investigated to possibilities. I wanted them to hear all of that from me. That's always the best way. But like I said, I do love social media. I love, seeing, your travels. I would never know some of that stuff. And we're able to connect and maintain our friendships in our lives, family and friends, longtime friends, by utilizing it. So I think it's a great thing. But you got to be careful.
Absolutely. And from a team perspective, you use it for recruiting purposes, for marketing purposes, for letting people know how good that program is at the Southern Illinois Miners. You couldn't do that. I mean, you'd have to send photos, via text or via somewhere else, or maybe in the mail. Now you can do it all over social media.
Well, every time we have a player that is able to join a major league organization or has a success and goes from one level to another, I'm able to talk about those things and frankly, give my players the credit that they deserve that people would not know about. Well, after a time, that builds an impression that we take care of our guys. Now, I don't do it for that, but that is the end result. We take care of our guys, and we want to make sure that people know about their successes. That's a good thing. And our fans, I have a lot of our fans that follow what I do on social media. I don't turn anybody down. And so here, follow what we have going on.
Before we get into building the program and a successful program, I want to get into a little bit about the branding aspect, because even I've sometimes have been criticized. Oh, Pete, you're always talking about yourself, what you do, and all that. Well, if I don't do it, who else is going to do it? First of all, it is my business. My name's on my business. It's Caliendo Sports. Baseball Outside the Box. Obviously, I'm the host of it, and I don't see any other way. You have to promote yourself, but you also have to be careful that people don't think you're self-centered. It's all about you only.
Right.
How do you do that?
It's a really fine line, but as you said, life is about visibility. And there's a saying, you've heard it a million times. It's not what you know, it's who you know. I don't think that's totally true. It's not who you know, it's who knows you. Who thinks of you? So let's say, for example, for coaches that are out there and a job is open. The reason I got the job with Southern Illinois, I never applied for it. Someone knew me and recommended me to the gentleman who was hiring. I wouldn't have got this job other than that. So it's not who you know, it's who knows you. And the only way to do that is to put yourself out there, to put your successes out there, to put your belief system out there when it comes to your sport and how you help your players and how you care for them.
And you do that very well with the minors because, you've got your website, you got the social media, you've got ways that players can see what the organization is all about. And by the way, folks, I'm going to send a message here. Mike doesn't know I'm doing this, but I'm going to do it anyways. For 3 years, I've told the ABCA I'm a 37-year member. I've told them 100 times, one of the best speakers in the world, one of the most successful managers in the business. We've got to get him on the ABCA as a speaker. And this is not a critique to the ABCA. They've got a lot of great people, but I'm going to tell you this, ABCA, all my great friends there, and I've got a lot of good ones, and I love the people in the front office. I've seen every speaker at the ABCA for 37 years. They're all fantastic. Mike's in the top 5, no doubt in my mind, in that area, if not at the top. So please listen to this podcast. I'm going to send it to the ABCA. We got to get Mike on as a speaker. They will love him, and coaches will appreciate things that he does. And you're going to hear some of that now. We're not going to give it all away here because we want the ABCA to get Mike on there. So let's talk about, when it comes to, and I don't want to stay on branding, but you know, a little bit about some ideas how, if a coach, a high school coach, is trying to get their program out, you know, a college coach. You know, we got a great friend right now, Nelson Gord, who got the head coaching job at Harper Junior College, right? He's trying to start a brand, really explode that program. We don't have to go through it all. What's some advice? What would you do if you're starting a brand new baseball program?
Well, obviously I was in that position 13 years ago, and I thought there for us were some key ingredients. One is we really had to really take care of our players. I wanted this to be the best experience of a player's life. I wanted, when players look back 10, 15 years from now, say, that's the best time I ever had. And that comes from how you treat your players and your relationship with them. Just a quick example. I had a guy that played for me now 13 years ago. His name is Mike Scanzano. He was an all-star shortstop. He was with us for 2 years. And Mike used to come in my office, and I had a candy drawer, and he loved orange slices. And I bought orange slices because I knew Mike Scanzano loved them. So I always had orange slices in there. Sunday, so just a few days ago, I get a text of him at a candy store. He said, Mike, we go crazy here. And I zoomed in, and what do you know, there were some orange slices. But here's a relationship that's 13 years ago he played for us. And Mike is successful and a commercial real estate broker, has a real successful baseball program, Scanzano Sports, in the Philadelphia area. But these are relationships that have maintained. I think in the end, do you care about the guys that play for you? Do they matter to you? And so that was something that was really important. I didn't want this. I always felt guys have said, boy, you have a great clubhouse. Every year, guy, we have such a great clubhouse. It's not by accident. We do a lot of homework as to who we bring in. And in the end, if I'm going to spend 4 months with a group of guys, I want to be with guys I like. And if you're a good guy, I can always find good players. There's a million good players out there. I want a good player, and I want a good person. I want somebody who has good character. I want somebody who, as they say, plays well in the sandbox.
So one of the things it's going to come down to when you're building a good program, and we might as well start with it. I mean, number one, you've got to be able to go out and find these good players that have great characters, and then be able to sign them to your program. Now, you've done a lot of things, and you hear the word culture all the time, and it's used so much. It seems like a general term. We're building a culture here. Mike Pinto didn't build a culture in 1 year. It took him a lot of years to do that. Kind of explain the process a little bit, and then we'll get into the details of some of the things you've done to build that culture.
Well, there have been a lot of things that over the years that we wanted to do. So part of it was, spring training. I think everything starts for you in spring training. I wanted to not just work out on the field. I thought it was important we get guys together away from the field. That's when your camaraderie among your team. So I've done a million different things. So I've taken guys 4 miles underground to an underground coal mine. And it was scary as could be. When all of a sudden you went into the tunnel and started heading down, Pete, it's scary. But it's scary when I bring you in with the bases loaded, nobody out in the 8th, and I need to get 3 outs. So if you can handle that situation, you become brave in fearful situations. It was a great experience. The guys loved it. I brought in a chef, and we've done cooking classes to teach guys how to cook for themselves. I rented a wiffle ball stadium. There's a place down in Southern Illinois, and we go and have a barbecue and play a wiffle ball World Series. It's the first ball you ever threw, first bat you ever swung. Let's go back to the core of having fun with this game, because in a few days the war starts, and sometimes this becomes a business real quick. I had to be able to keep the fun in that.
You know, and I got to stay on that because, you know, I hear this a lot from coaches. You got to have fun. You got to have fun. But the problem is a lot of coaches, when I look, really don't understand how to have fun. We're talking about former major league players, AAA guys, AA players, single A players. We're not talking about young kids only. These are grown men that love to have fun, and you've incorporated in that. Now, when you incorporate the fun, we're not just talking about spring training. We're talking about during the season, there's some fun also going on.
Yeah. The first thing we do, the very first day everybody's there, we have our workout and we go bowling together. And I kind of mix them up. They don't get to pick the guys who were with each other last year. One of the things, and I forget where I read this, there are fault lines that are built within a clubhouse, inherent fault lines. So think of it this way. You have pitchers on one side, position players on another. You have, in the pitcher side, you have starters, you have relievers. You've got your guys who have experience, and you have your rookies. Same thing on the other side. You've got whites, blacks, Latins, all within a clubhouse. You got coaches. And so you have all these inherent fault lines. What can I do to blur the lines? The better we know each other, the better opportunity we have of blurring the lines and having a group of guys that will play together and care for each other and give a darn that the other guy got a hit. And it's not, you know, you've seen all the shirts I've done over the years. It's not about me. You know, I do a lot of the Joe Madden kind of stuff. And I guess I think back, Pete, that when you're the more I have them together, the better chance I have that they're going to play together on the field. I've done things. I brought magicians in the clubhouse. I had an illusionist come in the clubhouse during the season in the middle of a losing streak, just to kind of lighten things up. And don't, you know, as you know me, the guys joke, there's two Mike Pintos. There's regular Mike and there's 7 to 10 Mike.
Yeah.
7 to 10 Mike is an awful lot like a Tony La Russa. I am on the top step. I've had guys who played for me that played for others and said, I wasn't sure I wanted to come here. You look like such a jerk from the other side of the field. You are standing there on the top step. You're watching everything. You always look like you're ticked off. And the guys in my clubhouse know that that's not the case at all.
You're in on every pitch. I mean, and the players read that, don't they? Because I was talking to Ron Washington yesterday on the show. He's very similar. Ron's very emotional, and he's in every pitch, every time. And that's just his personality. And his players have said, you know, we love him for that because he cares about every pitch and every swing.
Well, for guys that come to us from affiliated baseball, what they learn really quick is the first message on day one is I say, I expect to win every single game. Everything we do is built on winning every single game. Our pregame meetings, all of the things that we keep, the technology of information we keep, everything is designed to win every single game. I'm on the top step paying attention because I want to win tonight. Sometimes when guys come affiliated ball where it's just about guys getting their work in. Well, this isn't. This goes back a little bit to the college days where you're trying to win every night. We're trying to win every night.
If you're on Facebook, ask any questions to Mike Pinto, again, the all-time winningest manager with the Southern Illinois Miners in the Frontier League, Independent League. If you're not familiar with it, there's ex-big leaguers, AAA players, AA, single A, and rookies. So Mike has sent over 59 players to professional baseball, and that's not a mistake. That's intentional because he promotes players to organizations, and that's why people want to play for him also. Mike, we talk about, and feel free anytime, talk about the team and some of the things that, the way you put a club together. We'll get into that a little bit. But as far as when you lose, how you handle a loss and how that reflects onto the players, because everything a manager does, the team kind of follows. Right. What's a good way to handle a loss? I don't know if that's a easy way.
I don't know if there's an answer. I only know the way for me. And I have to be myself. I am not happy after a loss. But I also know that it's today. It's just today. We're playing again tomorrow. And so what I ask guys to do, out of respect to the guy that gave up the bomb that lost, or the guy that struck out with the bases loaded when we had a chance to win it, for 30 minutes after the game, there's no music, there's no TV. Let's just keep it down. 30 minutes after, I want Matt, my clubhouse manager, to go turn the TVs on, turn the music on. We'll go get him tomorrow. But the opposite is true as well. If we win, I want it. The players call it Club Mine Shaft. It's a nightclub. I had lighting brought in. We have a sound system. The sound system matches the lighting. And I want the place for 30 minutes to rock. We bring in a table with ice cream sundaes, because when we were a kid, we used to go get ice cream after a win. So we have ice cream and sprinkles, because if you believe the Progressive commercial, sprinkles are for winners.
I love it. Hey, folks, we're talking about, I'm going to reiterate this, for all our young coaches and coaches working with young players that are always so serious all the time. I'm in that category. I've been there. We're talking about ex-major leaguers, AAA players, but professional players we're talking about here. So I think it's outstanding. Mike, sometimes—
while we're on that, real quick, and we're both Italian. We have Italian Heritage Night.
Awesome.
During the season as well. So when the guys get in, there are photos of great Italians in baseball spread all over the clubhouse. And I spend 3 days cooking for the team. So the last time it was 144 handmade, hand-fried meatballs. And it took 3 days to do the gravy. We had garlic bread and salad and manicotti. I mean, it was incredible. And then on one TV is The Godfather, another one is Goodfellas. And then they have Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, and they get a card in their locker with Italian phrases that they have to find a way to use that night. So a guy gets a home run, arrivederci. And so it's really funny to watch some of these guys have had a lot of great success in their life, and they have some fun with it.
Mike, and that carries over later on, like you said, into their life. They become successful for that reason. A lot of young players, and I know even in professional baseball, they're shy. They don't know how to talk in front of people. They don't know how to communicate. So the sooner we can get young people to do that, the better. And this all helps that.
Well, we do a thing in spring training, and we talk about all the things we do. We do a thing called Miner's Idol. We have a logo for it and everything. We bring in a karaoke company, and all of the rookies sing karaoke, and they get a prize from one of the local restaurants. So we have prizes for the winners, and we have 3 of the veteran guys are the judges, and the players all vote on who gets to continue, and it's a lot of fun. But so imagine a rookie, you don't know anybody, you got to get up on stage and pick one of your favorite songs, and you got to lay it out there. And it's a way of kind of just breaking the ice, getting guys to here. I might have somebody who's in the big leagues sitting there, and you watch this guy on TV. You're a rookie. You're just coming out of college, and it's a way to even things up a little.
Yeah, and I see a great learning experience here with some of the coaches that are working with young players. They don't have to do all this, but they can pick and choose certain times to have these certain situations to have fun with their young kids and get them to grow better together. I love that. Now, here, I know this. I love what you do here because I think this is important. You also bring in professional umpires. I want you to talk about how you do that. But go ahead. Let's start with the umpires.
Yeah. Scott Taylor, who's the head of Division II umpires, used to umpire in our league. And so when you have a good, respectful relationship over time, Scott was a really good umpire. Did we always agree? No. And we certainly had conversations on the field where we didn't agree, but it was always respectful. Well, as he went on, we became friends. And so I brought him in, and we started this a number of years ago. We've done it a number of times. He does a program called The Truth Behind the Umpire-Player Relationship. So it starts with things like, do you know the name of the umpire? So is he a golfer? Hey, as you're running out to your position and you say to him, hey, Scott, how's the trip in? You know what? Just something to make it more personal. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be this all the time. It just doesn't. And so Scott's done a wonderful job of teaching our players the importance of doing that.
Michael, in that situation, and when he's talking to your players, I mean, is that a situation where also you might go over some rules, because a lot of times players really don't understand all the rules? Or
he does, and he also takes my catchers aside and he talks to them about receiving and giving him a better view. So he's, under the premise, I want to call strikes. I don't want to be here all day.
Right.
Give me a view so that I can call your pitch a strike. If you take it away from me, I can't.
Michael,
So,
you've done this. Right. Yeah, you've done this, and I know what you want to give Ralph Santana great credit for this. I remember you telling me, with your, and I know I'm jumping here to second base with runners on second, but you told me that you would take your pitchers and you would put them at second base like runners so they can get the view of what the pitcher has, and vice versa. Do you do that?
We started first base because pitchers don't realize, or rather, I put the position players on the mound. Right. And have them try to look at first base and realize that you don't get a very good view there. So you really can get a little bit more than you think you can. So, but Ralphie's done a phenomenal job. You'll love this, by the way. You talk about relationships over the years. Ralph calls me last night. He's in Louisville, and he said, you'll never guess, Ben Shivers, one of our former pitchers from 2011 and 2012, so it was a while ago, and Sean Coughlin, who's a catcher for us, are coaching in a youth tournament. The three of them are coaching against each other. You have no idea how I would love that video of that.
Oh, absolutely. And I was thinking too, maybe you already do this, but a little suggestion. I just thought of the top of my head. As you're doing the umpire session, it'd be great to let players make the calls at first base and see how hard it is to make a call at first base.
I like that idea.
Yeah, because a lot of times we assume, it's so easy to do it. I've done it, so I guess I can, because I umpire, so I know the difficulty behind making that close call. Right. I think if players understand it better, they'll have a better respect for the umpires.
You know what? That's a great idea. I think we're going to incorporate that in the spring training.
The other thing you brought up was the multitude of different ethnic groups that are players. We got Latin players, black players, Italians, I mean, all kinds, but especially Latin players who speak a different language. Talk about how, because I heard this yesterday and I thought it was very interesting, how important it is to get other players to speak other languages also, because I think that's kind of fun and it builds camaraderie, and other players will help you when you try to speak their language.
I had a Japanese shortstop one year, and David Harden, who went on to be a coach at Chicago State University. David's a wonderful coach, by the way. If anybody's looking for one, he's currently available. David is one of the great character guys that's ever worn my uniform. David wanted cultural experience. So David wanted to room with our Japanese player so he could learn about their culture. And I think it was a great life experience for him.
And also, if you think about it, unfortunately, it does happen. As you know, I was an independent ball. I've seen it. Professional baseball, sometimes you start to develop some cliques because, unfortunately, some players feel more comfortable because they speak Spanish or they speak whatever language, and now you got cliques. How does Mike Pinto and his coaches handle that situation?
Well, a lot of that comes down to the right players. And so when you have the right group of players, they will engage each other. So I had a player a number of years ago, Steve Marino. He's the only captain that we've ever had. And Steve was the guy for 3 years with us. He would go to the new players. He would take them around and introduce them to the other guys on the team. I ended up, I don't know how happy I am with it right now, but I had a group of Latin American players last year who honestly I love. I love them as human beings. They were so much fun to be around every day. And my catcher, Arturo Nieto, nicknamed me Viejo, which is the old man. Well, now they all picked it up. And so, but they're a lot of fun. And, you know, again, I want all kinds of music in the clubhouse. My only rule for music in the clubhouse is no language. Not everybody likes that stuff. And so let's not be offensive to those. You know what? I can listen to my stuff, close my door, put my headphones on or turn my speaker. I can listen to my own music before the game.
Absolutely. Hey, I picked this up and I saw Mark Cuban talk about it a long time ago, and I know you do it, and talking about, you know, here we're talking with Mike Pinto. I'm going to take some questions here from Facebook. Apologize, folks. You know, Mike and I are getting into this, and sometimes we won't stop. But I will take some questions here in a minute. Cuban, you know, with the Mavericks, when he first started and still does it, you know, he treats the opponent almost better than his own team with the clubhouse, and maybe just as equal. You do that also. A lot of people would look at it and say, what are you, nuts? I mean, I want them to be in the worst situation because I don't want them to play real well when they get out there.
You know, a part of it is a respect for your competitor, and part of it is doing the right thing. And so we try to take care of our opponents very well. And the lesson I had from that was there was a guy named Jake Eichste who played in our league at Rockford. And Jake had gone on to another league and had left. And his brother, Ryan Eichste, was a catcher. I think he was in the Padre organization, AAA guy, got released. My catcher had gotten hurt, and I was looking for a catcher. I called Ryan Eichste. Called me back a few hours later. He said, I talked to my brother, Jake. He said, you guys treat teams so well that we would be the place to go. Now, Jake Eichste and I had never met, but we had obviously treated their team well enough when they were there that ended up getting a player. I'm sure there's been more than one.
Absolutely. When players see that and they walk in, they got a great looking clubhouse. They got great towels. They got great food. I mean, they're like, wow, you know, this is a place to play. And then they go back home and maybe their clubhouse isn't so good. And they're thinking, why am I playing there? I want to play for the St. Louis Miners. Let's talk about this part. We talked about the umpires, but I want to talk a little bit about when we talk about the culture aspect of building a program. What does that mean to you overall? I mean, what does it really culture mean? Just treating people the way?
No, I think it's how you do what you do. From how do you dress on the field? How do you handle yourself when you're on the road? You know, something I had years ago had read the book Legacy by James Kerr. And a lot of coaches, I'm sure at this point, have read it. And so I did right when it had first come out. So we started a thing. I read a passage to the players about sweep the sheds, the concept of taking care of your clubhouse before you left. And a couple of our players went across the street to Menards and bought a couple brooms and a couple dustpans. We bought a bag of garbage bags. And from that day on, our players leave a clubhouse, a visiting clubhouse, immaculate when we leave. It's swept out. All the garbage is taken care of. The chairs are put back. We're going to wipe out all of the lockers. We're going to leave the place better than we found it. That is part of a culture. It's just doing the right thing.
You know, and speaking about that, a lot of young coaches, including myself, when I first started, because we travel around the world, and I end up in a dugout in the Dominican Republic or Cuba or wherever. If it's dirty, it's going to be clean anyways, even though we didn't do that.
Right.
We're gonna show respect for the field, respect for everything. But it sounds like, if I remember correctly, your leaders or your older players are the leaders in this, not your rookies.
Correct. This is not a rookie responsibility. This is a senior member responsibility. And again, a concept I got from Legacy. In most cases, okay, the rookie's responsible for taking care of all that stuff. No, this is a message from our senior leaders to every member on the team that there's no job too insignificant to do at the highest level.
Love it,
So,
love it. Let's take a
it's
question.
a great message, and we've lived that for a long time now.
Absolutely. Now, what have you seen? I guess I should ask you, what do you see the carryover to that is when that's going on? What's the result of that? I guess is where I'm getting.
I think first of all is a pride in what we do. There's a feeling among the players of that. You know, we have the players nicknamed it. It's the miners' way. When you walk into our clubhouse, there are runners in both entrances to our clubhouse that have the miners' way on there. When you walk into our clubhouse on the left-hand side, there's photographs of all of the great miners that have been there before them. There are pictures of celebrations every celebration in the clubhouse, celebrations on the field. There's all of that stuff is when you walk in our clubhouse. And the feeling I want is there were great players before you, and your job is to carry that on. The number that you wear, the locker that you use. One of the things that we're going to do this year is we're going to put the names of all the great miners that had used your locker before you. And it's just part of a feeling that you're part of something bigger than just you.
Absolutely. I'm going to take questions, folks. Yes, we are coming to Facebook. I know we're a little late on that. Apologize. My fault on that one. Derek Fibelson. Now, Derek, I've known his dad for a long time. He's on Facebook. I believe he's still the high school coach at Hoffman Estates High School. He was going to correct me on Facebook if I'm wrong. 41 years old, says can still pitch. So, Mike, he's going to be sending you some stuff.
Now, hold on. You know how I know Derek Fibelson?
No.
Derek Fibelson's father was my son's, Paul.
Yeah.
Paul was my son's Little League coach when he first started playing baseball.
Talk about a small world, man.
And my son and Derek were teammates. So
wow.
what a small world. And Derek was a tremendous player, catcher, left-handed hitter. I remember him very well.
Hey, Derek, by the way, yes, Conan High School. So I told you he'd correct me, and he should. He should. Caliendo, what are you thinking, huh? You should know that. Hey, I blame it on old age, folks. And Derek, just so you know, I'm looking at Facebook. Just because your dad knows Mike, that doesn't mean you got an edge. You still got to be a good player, and you got to produce. Otherwise, you're not going to get signed here. But he does ask about independent ball. You know, you mentioned the minors. The Frontier League will not be playing this year, but there are some independent leagues that are going to try to play. Right. Maybe talk about what independent ball briefly is a little bit.
It is the place for the player who didn't get drafted, maybe thought he should have, maybe got missed, maybe developed late, maybe had got hurt his junior year and ended up missing part of a season. And they come to us. Half of our team is made up of rookies, guys just in that situation. The other half are made up of guys. I mean, I had 2 guys last year on my team with 8 years of pro experience. Guys had been in AA and AAA. You know, we had a guy a couple of years ago, Williams Perez, that had 31 major league starts as a starting pitcher. So you have a wide range of players in there.
Mike, part of building a program, you've sent 59 players. And folks, I did mention that Mike is the all-time winningest manager, and he passed up a good friend of mine who played for me when I was in independent ball, Fran Reardon, another great manager, which I got to get on the show. Absolutely great. And you talk about a guy with character. There's a man right there also, Fran Reardon, with great character.
Let me give you an example of how that. So in 2012, we beat Fran's team for the Frontier League Championship. Before he left to get on the bus to leave, He knocked on our clubhouse door, came in, and congratulated me and our coaching staff. It was a class move. When I passed him for the all-time winningest manager, he sent a video to us that our staff used on the video board,
Wow.
congratulating me. And so he was a tremendous manager and AAA manager now for the Oakland A's. And I will not at all be shocked to see him in the big leagues before too long.
You know, I agree with you 100%. And speaking about the 59 players, you know, you're proactive when it comes to getting guys signed, and that's also part of building that. You know, I guess you used the word culture a lot, but building that successful program.
Yeah, that's why guys come here. Guys come to Southern Illinois, and to answer the previous question, half are rookies, half are guys that were with a major league organization and got released. And maybe it's performance, maybe it's they got hurt, maybe it's they're stalled. And imagine being a shortstop of the Yankees all those years that Derek Jeter was there.
Yeah.
It's only so far you could go before you get pushed out.
Mhm.
And so that's when they end up in independent ball, hoping to go back to an organization. Now, fortunately, after all the years of doing this, you know, this is my 19th season, you end up with a lot of relationships. Farm directors, scouts, guys that cover all the independent leagues for major league teams, who are always calling and saying, who do you got? Who do you got? Who's doing well? And what it takes is the right guy with the right organization with the right timing. You know, I had a guy, Matt Bywater, a few years ago. Matt was pitcher of the year, and he was dominating. And he was a left-handed starter. He was not a reliever. He was 26 years old. And Matt was wondering, Mike, is anybody calling about me? They're not. And the reason had nothing to do with his skill. It had to do with he was a left-handed starter who was going to have to go to a higher level. Well, eventually an opening happened, and he got a chance to go to the Atlanta Braves. But it takes the right timing for that to happen. You know, I talk to players about, I think there's 5 stages to the independent ball player. The first one is, oh, I can't believe I'm going to independent ball.
I remember that.
And then they get to Southern Illinois, they see the field, they see the clubhouse, the facilities, and go, wow, this isn't bad. The third stage is, uh-oh, these guys are better than I thought they were. Because everybody thinks that they get released from AA, they think they're going to come in here and carve. Right. And the only way you do is to put the same amount of heart and effort in that you did to get to AA. The fourth stage is, Mike, I'm doing really well. Is anybody calling about me? And that's the part that worries me, because that's when they're not focused on being in the moment. Be where your feet are. And then the fifth stage is just go back to playing the game hard, playing the game to win, have fun playing the game, work hard every day, be where you are, and everything else will happen for you. If it doesn't, the worst is you look back years from now and say, I really did give it my best effort.
What's the most difficult thing in managing independent baseball?
Releasing a player. Well, there's no question about it, because I'm many times the guy that is ending their career. They were probably the best guy in their high school, the best guy in Little League. Sometimes I've had guys that were the best all-time hitter in their college. And then they got signed, and they went to an organization, and they got released, and they came to us. And maybe sometimes, I don't know what happens when motivation leaves, heart and desire leaves, and then they're not the same guys they were. And when I have to release them, I know that sometimes that's the end. And when I am not empathetic about that or don't feel that, then I don't want to do this anymore.
Absolutely.
It's a really hard thing to do. My hardest days, Pete, really are the last 2 days of spring training, because I have to release approximately 12 guys in the space of 2 days.
Would you say the toughest ones, and would you say the toughest ones are, you know, if you've got that 28-man roster, you know, you've got 29 and 30, and then you got 28 and 27, you got to make that decision. That's always a tough one. You know, some of the other ones are a little easier because you know he's the 12th or the 11th player that you're going to cut?
I'll tell you, for me, the hardest one is a guy who was with us last year, and he didn't improve, or maybe during the off season didn't work at it quite as hard as he had before. And here's a guy I've had a relationship with a year or two, and now I've got to let him go. That's the hardest one, because I've grown to care for them, or they wouldn't be there.
And they've been with you, obviously. And what about, just being straight, honest, and truthful has to be the hardest thing, but the most important thing to do.
Yeah, it's funny, Pete. I tell players, see, the door's open for a reason. If you are wondering something, come in and ask me. You wonder why I pinch hit for you last night in the 7th? It's bothering you that much? Do not complain behind my back. Come and ask me. If it bothers you that much, ask me. I'll tell you. You may not like it. You may not agree. It may not have worked, but it will always be the truth. And if I live by that principle, if I simply am truthful in those situations with those players, I don't have to worry about remembering what my lie was. I can just be truthful. And I've just found, for me, that is the best approach. Sometimes it's things they don't want to hear. And if I have a relationship with them, I can be honest. And I've had to have some really hard conversations where I brought a guy in. I don't like the way you're acting on the field. Now it's in private, and that's where it will stay. But I have to be able to be honest with you. Twice last night, you didn't run balls out. I didn't embarrass you, but we're going to talk about it today. One of the things I picked up from Tony La Russa was a 24-hour rule. I never, ever talked about a player about something that happens in the moment. I'll do it tomorrow. Today, I'm ticked off because you didn't run that ball out, and I'm going to wear you out. And then we lost. Now, it's better tomorrow. I can be constructive, I can be instructive, and I can maintain the relationship, because I'm going to need the relationship at some point for a guy to dig a little deeper.
Boy, do I got some questions here. I got another one, man. I'm going to come at you because I love this. It's from the simple standpoint that you also, as one of the most winningest managers, is always growing. And I want to go back to college baseball because you've changed in some ways, because I remember the number 3 hitter hitting a pop-up and not running it out and being pulled out of the game that second. Right. Mike Pinto's changed a little bit when it comes to that, or is it the different levels of the game?
It's a combination. There's a lot of things I think back as a college coach and wish I had not done. That I'd be so much better now. Players would play better for me now. And I have still wonderful relationships with those guys from back then. And part of it is that age. There has to be one way, and there can't be a gray area. But I probably would do things differently. Again, I'm playing every day. I spend so much time with these guys. The relationship is important. Don't get me wrong. I am going to call a guy in, and we're going to have a conversation, but I'm not going to embarrass him in front of his teammates.
Yeah, Ron Washington had a great saying yesterday. You guys are very similar, and that is, if you see it, then say something. In other words, if they're not doing something correctly, then it has to be not necessarily they just did it wrong, but maybe it's a fundamental skill they're working on and they're doing it incorrectly. If you see it, say something. And a lot of coaches sometimes are a little hesitant to constantly be saying things.
I had a player, and I don't want to name him because I would embarrass him, and I would never want to do that. But I had a player who was really a phenomenal player, and he was so hard on himself. He expected to get a hit every single time, and would beat himself up. And we had to have the conversation one day, and I said, every umpire is not out to get you. And you are not going to get a hit every time up. You've got to calm down. This is what is going to prevent you. Your skill will get you to affiliate a ball. But what's going to prevent you from having success is this. You can't do this. And I said, I'm going to get on you. I'm going to stay on you because I want to see you do well. And I appreciate he took that to heart, and it made a big difference for him. And ended up with a phenomenal year, and ended up signing at the end of the season with an organization.
Talk about that, because, dealing with players is building relationships, and every player is a little different. And you're going to have Latin players. Here in Chicago, we've got, as you know, Baez, and Madden many times it has been asked, how come you don't calm him down the way he plays the game? Well, he doesn't want to take that aggressiveness away from him. So there's a balancing point here. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, there really is. And culturally, a lot of different players handle things differently. I've had Italian players like us, hotheads, and I know them, and I still have to be able to say something, but I know that, that's what managing is all about. It is getting to know your players so you can manage them as individuals, as people, and not as a unit. I'm managing you to get the best out of you. You might be one way, the next guy's another way. You talked about Ralph Santana, and Ralph Santana is like a son to me. I yelled at Ralph Santana more, him individually, than all the players that have ever played for me combined. That was Ralph. And that was mine and Ralph relationship. I love him, but that was Ralph as a player.
Yeah, you couldn't do.
He was hard-nosed. Everything was a fight. You
couldn't do that with another player. You'd have to know their personality.
Absolutely. I had a player, tough street kid, incredible arm, and lefty, mid-90s. And I bring him in to face a situation and that he's going to dominate in. He walks the first guy in 4 pitches. Every pitch is up in the guy's eyes. He's trying to throw the ball through the back fence. Next guy comes up. He walks him. He goes ball 1 on the next guy, call time. I walk out to the mound. I said, I will kill you in your sleep tonight if you want this thing. I said, I called Tony Soprano, and I'm paying for the hit. And my catcher's laughing, and Brian's laughing. And I said, when are you going to believe in yourself as much as I do? I bring you in because this guy has no chance against you. You must not believe in yourself because you're trying to through a brick wall. Would you calm down and just be you? That's all I need is you. And walk back to the dugout. He breaks a bat, gets a double play, and the next pitch comes in. And I just went, how tough was that?
Yeah.
And but here's what I know. I knew Brian really well. And I know I could do that. And I knew he'd laugh. If I did that to another player, I could crumble him. So you got to know your guys.
Yeah, and speak about knowing your guys, you do your homework, because we're not talking about just picking the best players. Like you said, character's important, but there's other things you need to know about these players. How do you find that information out?
Well, fortunately at this point, my network over 19 years of doing this is pretty extensive. So I have a lot of people that send me players. That's always a good start.
Mm-hmm.
I have certain agents that every guy they've ever sent me is high character guy who's also a good performer. That's a really good start.
Sure.
If I get a call from a farm director from an organization, he is not putting his name on somebody who's a bad guy. And then what I do is I look and say, where did he play? Who did he play with? And again, with having so many out there, I can send a note to this guy with the Dodgers, this guy with the Royals, this guy with this organization, say, hey, what can you tell me about such and such? And sometimes you get not a guy for you. And now I know. Or high character guy, and guys have said he'd be the perfect minor. Okay, now I know. Last year we signed Gianfranco Wawu, who's from Curacao. And I got a really great recommendation on him from the start. Made a couple calls, got some more really good recommendations. Once I signed him, my phone blew up with guys that knew him, that knew me. And, oh, you're going to love this guy. He's such a great teammate. Well, all of that proved to be true. He was every bit what everybody had said as a player and a teammate. So, but I investigate social media. I have a baseball operations intern now that helps, and we kind of go and scroll and see, is this a guy whose profile fits what we're looking for?
You know, I love that because I think players need to understand that managers, coaches, recruiters, they go look at social media. They talk to coaches. They talk to family members possibly. If they have to go further. In Major League Baseball, you know, they're investing so much money. They've got to go as deep as possible because they cannot make a mistake on that player. Folks, real quick, on Facebook, thanks for joining us. Go ahead and ask questions. Just type them in the comments section. I'm going to get to a question right now. You're listening to Caliendo, Pinto, and the Fivelson Show. Because Fivelson's got another question. So he asked, Derek asked, what's the most important aspect you look for in a catcher as a coach in independent ball?
It's multiple things. One is their ability to catch a strike. I can't lose strikes. And pitchers work really hard to get them. So I want a guy who has the receiving ability to get that. I want a guy who has great communication skills, and pitchers want to work with them. That's a guy that they have confidence in, that when he puts down a number, they know, hey, he's got a plan of what he's trying to do there. Those are the things most important to me. Hitting is a far distance. If I can get hitting, wonderful, but I've been really blessed to have had some tremendous catchers over the years, and guys that had a lot of experience, AAA guys that have been in big league camp. I had a big league catcher at one time when I was in Sioux Falls. So I really learned the art of a guy who can get me a strike and a guy who can go talk to a pitcher so that I don't have to.
All right. Now here, interesting, interesting enough. You know, Derek says receiving, throwing seems to be the trend. You know, and Derek, as I watch all over social media and also talk to coaches, yeah, receiving seems to be the number one thing, as Mike talks about. But Mike, that could change soon because independent ball has kind of veered a little bit and started testing, and Major League Baseball is looking at it, the electronic strike zone,
Right.
which then will take receiving completely out.
Yeah. I don't know how soon that will happen in our league, but it certainly could at some point down the road. You know, it's funny. We talk to our catchers about their ability to communicate with, so when they catch a bullpen, to talk to the pitcher after the bullpen. What did he see? What did he like? What did he think the pitcher, you know, could work on in their next session? I think those things are all, that communication skill is really important. In the meantime, till the rules change, I want a guy who can get me a strike, not lose me a strike.
Absolutely. And boy, Ned, talk about confidence in your pitching staff when a guy can do that. And then no different than when they feel there's a guy that can really block really well. Now they're allowed to throw certain pitches and certain counts. They're not afraid that it's going to bounce and, you know, and they're going to miss it.
You know, at our level, Pete, I really do expect guys can throw. You know, those are numbers that we all check and have reports on before they ever get here. I assume they can throw, and I assume they can block, or they wouldn't have got here. That would not be a guy that we would have ever had interest in. So those are givens, but it's the other ones that are really, those are big deals for me.
All right. If you're going to study somebody, I know who I would study when it comes to receiving. Who's your guy in the big leagues? If you're going to study, I'm sure you studied him already. About, you know, learning how he does.
I'm a Cubs fan, so I have a really hard time saying his name.
Yeah, I'll say it for you, Molina.
Yeah, I mean, how many strikes does he get for his pitchers, really?
Absolutely, and they've shown it. MLB Network has had many shows where they've shown how many strikes he gets, and he's even more valuable to the team. Right. On top of that, on top of being a leader. I've got let me see if I got a question here from Gavin, from our good friend from South Africa. Can height have an impact on being an effective catcher? I think he's saying, can height be an impact on being an effective catcher? I'm assuming height of how tall a guy is or shorter.
Yeah. I mean, I've had some big catchers. I've not had many small catchers. From a lot of the pitchers I've talked to, they like a big target back there.
Mm.
But in the end, they want a guy who can catch. They want a guy who can block. They want a guy who is going to, I don't want to say shut the running game down, but not that they're not going to get taken advantage of. And they want a guy they can trust what numbers they're going to put down. For me as a manager, by the way, I'm also looking for a guy. We do a lot of work with our scouting reports. We have a lot of technology that goes into what we do. I need a catcher who will understand that technology and take the information we have with our pitching coach and put that into a game plan.
Absolutely. Love it, love it, love it. Hey, I want to give a shout out to our good friend, because you brought up Moneyball. Ken Medlock, our good friend who played Grady Fusion and Moneyball, former AAA player, pitching coach for the St. Paul Saints. And I bring that up because it relates to the catchers. You know, in Moneyball, you saw the movie and read the book about, you know, when you're looking at certain players, they didn't worry about body types. Now, more catchers seem to be more athletic. I mean, look at our Chicago Cubs catcher, extremely athletic. A lot of big league guys are more athletic. I guess you can be both in some ways. The key is, are you receiving well, and you can throw guys out?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. You talk about athletic. Yesterday, we do a thing on social media, This Day in Minors Baseball. And my radio broadcaster sent me a note the night before, and he said, wait till you see tomorrow's This Day in Minors Baseball. We won a ball game on my catcher stealing home. And so shout out to Brendan Occasion. Nice job with that. But by the way, you know what? You and I both know our good friend Ryan Cienko. If the coaches are out there are not paying attention to what Ryan has taught and all these courses on pitch framing, they are missing out, because he is absolutely the leading edge in pitch framing and receiving these days.
No doubt about it. We will copy him as we forward this show all over social media. We'll copy Ryan also. Our co-host, Derek Fivelson, says, great information, guys. Thanks. If you ever get down to the minors, if I ever get down to a minors game, Mike, and you need to have your bullpen catcher take a rest, Derek will jump in there.
I would love to see him again, by the way. So I may have to check out a Conan schedule and go watch him one day.
You know what? You know, and I feel bad. I live right around the corner. My stepdaughter went to Conant, but Derek, I need that invitation, and I need a front seat. What I need is a special chair for me with my name on it, and then I'll come. No, I'm just teasing. Michael, as we talk about building a program, I'm not sure people are going to relate this part, but I want you to talk about it. Not everybody actually has this situation, but in dealing with the media, I believe that's part of building a program, because your media can be very good for you and be on your side if you're respectful and you answer questions. Now, you do that not just with the media, but you do it with the fans, because you answer their questions. I want you to talk about all that, why you do that.
Yeah, it's a really important part of my job in Southern Illinois, both on the business side as COO and as manager. I'm going to get interviewed every day. So I'm going to have a press conference of some kind every day following a game. I'm going to be asked questions before the game. We're going to have media that's going to cover us there. We have 3 TV stations that cover us. We have multiple radio stations, including a ESPN radio outlet, 103.5 ESPN. And we have multiple newspapers. And so I'm going to end up with interviews every day. Again, I have found the same thing. Be transparent. I'm never going to throw a player under the bus, but they know they're pretty much going to get from me what the truth is. I've just always found that's the best way to handle myself in all the media situations.
And you've done that on social media when fans ask questions.
Yeah, we put that out there from time to time. And again, I have reasons behind what I do in a game. They may not work, but there was a reason behind it. There's always a reason behind all the decisions we make. So why not be transparent if fans have questions? And look, the tough part is sometimes it's personal, that why a player's not getting used versus strategically.
Yeah, and sometimes, and I love the sports media, because I've been around them a long time. There's some really good people that understand the game really well. because they've been around it a long time. They've seen
Yeah.
a lot happening. But at the same time, they don't do it every day. They don't manage. They don't make those decisions. They don't have 3 seconds to make the decision. And sometimes, you're going to get a press conference, you're going to get a question questioning you why you bunted in that situation or why you did this in this situation. And you just lost that game and it was a critical game and you've got to hold your composure. That is not easy to do. How does Mike Pinto handle that, especially as an Italian?
Yeah. First of all, I have 15 minutes after the game before I open up to media. That gives me a few minutes to
cool down.
They know up front it's going to be 15 minutes after the game ends, so I get a chance to go in my office for a minute. And sometimes it's a tough loss. Sometimes it's something we didn't execute well. But again, kind of under the 24-hour period, I'm not throwing my player under the bus. That's something maybe we need to work on as a team. If we didn't get a bunt down or we missed a cutoff man in a let a run score, that's my fault because I obviously have not taken enough time to make sure that our players see the importance and we work on that skill. So
I like that approach. So you never call a player out in the media. You always do it inside in a closed room, which I love to hear that. Your door's always open. And something that we probably should have been the leadoff part of our talk here when it comes to building a program. I'm assuming you can't build a program without great ownership at the top because, now I'm not talking about independent ball only, folks. We're talking about high school baseball. You got to have great administrators, college baseball, and you need an administrator that heads up the program that believes in you, supports you. Talk about the value behind that in building that program.
Well, I've been fortunate to have that since I started. We had an owner, John and Jane Simmons, that own our stadium, and they've invested a boatload of money. I mean, it was initially $26 million to build it. We have the best of everything. Our players have the best of everything. At that time, Chief Operating Officer Eric Haig believed that we needed to treat players well. We needed to do things right. And they gave me the autonomy to build, in essence, a business within our business. And so our baseball operations department is a business. I run it like a business, from the branding aspect to our marketing to how we run internally, all the things we do. And then when Eric left, Tim Arsenault was our general manager and vice president, and Tim had the same philosophies. And then I'm going back, I think 2015 now, our owner, John Simmons, called one day and said, hey, let's go to the World Series this week. And we got on a plane and flew to New York, and he said, I'd like to have you run our business. I think you've been running a business within our business, and I'd like to see the Miners Way brought on the business side now that Tim has left as well. Tim had gone on, both of them are with the Frisco Rough Riders, an incredible organization. And John said, let's have a new vision. And so we've done a lot of new things on the business side, from new widescreen HD video board. We brought in new special seating and outdoor entertainment plaza, a miniature golf course, a wiffle ball field, all within our stadium are all new. And so John and Jane do things right. They just do things right.
It's interesting. Manager, COO, I said CEO, my correction, COO. And a lot of times those are two different people. So now the manager goes to the COO and I need this and I need that. You've already taken care of that, so you don't have that conflict. But what about the decision-making, on the field and off the field? Does that ever contradict itself, or is it tough to make a decision on the field because of something off the field?
Not really. I'll tell you where the tough part may come in is on a rain out.
Oh, yeah.
So I may really need to play this game today. I need to get this game in, but it doesn't make a lot of business sense. There's nobody here. We're going to have rain. We're not going to play till 10:30 tonight. So those factors come in sometimes. But again, it comes down to just do the right thing.
But the beauty is you're the CEO, so you make the call. and you can make that call, whether it's a baseball decision. And I think the conflict is if you have two different people there, you could have conflicting ideas and you could have some friction in making that final decision sometimes.
Maybe that's true, but I never found that. I think back to all my years with Eric and Tim, and I don't ever remember there being a situation of we didn't agree on that decision process. So yeah, I can see what might happen. I just never had the experience where it did.
Absolutely.
I was really lucky. I've had great, when you talk about administrators or, front office, we've never ever had this. It was always this from the very beginning.
Michael, something that you hear a lot about, from players and from people that know you, Tony La Russa, again, happened to be Italian, but he's the same way. We already heard the emotional aspect of caring about your players and understanding them and all that. But there's also the part of your attention to detail of all the small things. Sometimes we overlook that because that's not important because nobody's going to see it. I really want you to hit on the attention to detail, why it's so important.
I have a sign up top of my clubhouse that said everything matters. Everything matters. Every attention to detail matters. When my players arrive for spring training, everything has to have been in place. Their lockers have to be set up. We have to have everything. When they go to the board and it lays out what we will do minute by minute for the day today, they need the confidence that there's a plan. When we go through our scouting reports, they know that we have been tracking this information, that we keep information that's important for them to be able to win and them to be able to have success. If we can give a pitcher a better pitching plan based on the data we've collected on that hitter, I give him a better chance to get out of here and go to an organization. So they need to know that we care about that stuff, that the details matter. They do.
And that carries over on your staff during games, prior to games, everybody that works for you, everybody that's cleaning the field, whoever it may be, that small attention is important for everybody.
I keep a pad in my pocket, and the pad is kind of two-sided. One is my observations on things that are going on during the game that I'll have to address tomorrow. The other side is I noticed that a foul ball went in that area over there and the usher didn't go make sure the fan was okay. Or the way we did that promotion on the bungee cords weren't far enough apart. We missed a pick play there. We've got to be sure tomorrow we go through the numbers so that they know what the pick play was. So I've got both sides of it going all the time, but all those details matter and they add up as the year goes on.
Folks, and you're probably wondering, he Mike probably only gets about 4 hours of sleep a day because there's no way you can do all this and get 9 hours of sleep. So he's got something special he does. Michael, this has been a great show. And one thing, there's so much to build in a program. I'm sure I've missed some of the topics, but let's finish it off with some areas that maybe we missed that are important when it comes to building a successful program.
Oh, boy, Pete.
I know there's a lot to it. But
there's just so many. I think, the term buy-in gets used a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's overused. I think if you care about your players and treat them well, they will care whether things are going right. So earlier when we talked about guys leaving the clubhouse, I don't have to say anything to the players about leaving the clubhouse. That's a one-time conversation, one of the days in spring training. It's never had again. The leaders take care of that stuff. And I think that's an important part of as you build your clubhouse. You've got to have guys that you trust that will carry your message. In 2015, I had come down with bladder cancer in the middle of the season. And it happened right at the All-Star break. And I was going to see a doctor the next week. I had no idea how long I was going to be out. And I met with my team the day before the break. I told them what was going on. And I said, the best thing about this team is we have such a great clubhouse. And we have leaders in this clubhouse. And all I'm going to ask you to do is continue to lead. You guys take care of the clubhouse and let the coaches take care of prepping for the game. And if we do that, we will not miss a beat. And we didn't. We ended up winning the division. I came back and met the team after I'd had that surgery. And we kind of picked up where we were. And the guys had a great run when I was gone. Ralph, I'm listening to the games or watching it on the internet. And so I talk to the coaches after every game. And it's a funny story. Ralph tells it that a few days after my surgery, we had won a game in extra innings, but we didn't use the pitching staff the way I had set up before the game. So Frankie Martinez, who played for me, was one of the kindest human beings ever to wear a uniform. Frankie runs into Ralph after the game, and he said, "Hey, if you talk to Mike, how's he doing?" And Ralph said, "He must be doing." He said, "I don't know. I just got off the phone with him. He just got done ripping me for not using the pitching right." And Frankie said, "Good. That means he's feeling better."
You got to love it. Love it. Love it. Hey, finally, to young people out there, young coaches that are getting into the game, whether it be at the high school level, travel ball, just some kind of final words as they get into coaching, some advice that maybe can kind of take a shortcut to success for them so they don't make as many mistakes that maybe you and I have made.
You know what? It's a great point, Pete. First of all, you are a product. As a coach, you are a product to be marketed. You have to start building your brand as a coach. That's important. If you're going to go interview for a job, don't tell them what you know about baseball. Tell them how you're going to build something that matters. When I interviewed for the job with the minors, it was about building something. As Eric Hakes said to me when we got done with the interview, he said, "Mike, I've interviewed a dozen guys. I've interviewed former big league managers, former big league players, and everybody tells us what they know about baseball." He said, "We're putting $26 million into a stadium and millions into marketing this brand. I need somebody who has a little better plan on how to just win one baseball game."
Wow.
And I would bet to say that most people that are hiring a coach today, that's an important thing for you to know when you interview. You better go in with a plan.
You know what? And I do want to ask you this, since you brought that up, because I see a lot of coaches, how you act and how you dress, how you do things off the field, not just baseball coaches, but anybody in any business, reflects also on the field. And I want you just to address that. I meant to close off with the last part, which was fantastic, but this is another one that I want to reach out to coaches about.
Well, again, part of your brand. How are you representing yourself? How do you represent your school, your program? I am so visible in Southern Illinois. Honestly, Pete, I am dressed to go to the ballpark. I'm dressed to go to a restaurant. I understand that I have a visibility. I've been there 13 years. I'm on the news, a lot of nights. And so people know who you are. And so why not assume everybody knows who you are and handle yourself in public accordingly?
Love it. Great way to end it. And I'll tell you, folks, we talked about, building a program here. This was the major goal, is to understand how to build a program, how to brand yourself as a baseball coach, how to be professional. Now, we added some things in there about managing and coaching, so I'm glad we threw some of that stuff in. But we're going to have a special session with Mike just on managing and really get into that aspect of it. But I felt this was important. And also a shout out one more time to the ABCA, all my great friends there. I've sent you letters, emails, and now I'm doing it on video. You're not going to find a better speaker, a professional speaker. I won't even tell you how much he gets to speak to Fortune 500 companies. But, that's not about the money, because with the ABCA, nobody gets paid, as you know, as a speaker. It's about having outstanding professional people on stage. They do it every year, and you got to include Mike Pinto. You just heard part of it, small part. You will hear a lot more if he's speaking at the ABCA in front of 10,000 coaches. Outstanding. Michael, again, you've done a lot for me. I can't thank you enough. You've done a lot for my wife, Beverly. You're a great friend, and you've done a great job in the game of baseball. Thanks for being on the show, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me, Pete. It's an honor, man. And by the way, the shows you're doing right now. I mean, I was on one of your early shows very early on when you were first starting this, and to watch how you've grown as an interviewer, to watch how the people that you're getting on the shows now. I mean, Ron Washington, Tom House, and Clint Hurdle, and the guys you're getting right now. If people aren't subscribed to your channel, they're out of their minds because you know, and I get it. You know what? I see notices. Hey, you're going to have this guy, and I'm busy. I mean, you know, I've got loaded days, but I will have a time when I will be able to go back and get those. And so I think the education of you as a coach is critical. You don't know what you don't know. There's a new idea out there that you may hear from Ron Washington or Tom House, and you go, that's a thing that's how your program changes. You said to me earlier, how are you different now than then? It's the things I've learned. And if you're always looking for the next idea, and it comes from being tuned into a podcast like you're doing here with the great people you've got, there's a wealth of information. You can learn from experience, or you can learn from other people's experiences and shorten that learning curve. There you go. That for a young coach, that's it.
Thank you, Michael. Really appreciate it. Outstanding. Love it. And folks, so do us a favor. It's all we ask. The shows are all free. We got over 80 already on YouTube. YouTube is Peter Caliendo. You just put Peter Caliendo in and then hit the subscribe button and you're set. Now you won't miss the show. So please subscribe to the show. And don't forget, special thank you to Mike Pinto, the all-time winningest manager in the Frontier League history with the Southern Illinois Miners by far. If I had a player anywhere in the world at any level, this is the program I would send him to, no doubt in my mind. So if you need to get hold of Mike, we'll have it on the show notes on YouTube and also on Baseball Outside the Box. Special thanks to Brian Crock, our producer with the Lineup Media Group. Great organization. Check out all their shows. And, of course, special thanks to our listeners on Twitter, YouTube, Zoom, in the U.S. and around the world. Without you guys, we would not have a show. So thanks for doing that. Thanks for listening, and please spread the show also, because that just makes the baseball industry that much smarter, makes us all smarter. So again, I'm Pete Caliendo, your host with the show that loves to interview baseball's best coaching minds who love to challenge the status quo. God bless you. Have a great time on the field if you're out playing. If not, you will be soon. Love you all. See you on the next show.